This is episode 3 of Shutter Priority, the first one with the new name. I'll talk more about that at the end of the video. We're going to be doing some point and shoot photography today, actually. We're going to be heading out to Fiddletown. Unfortunately, I didn't get any POV in Fiddletown, but I did get some POV in this video, so you'll see that. But we're shooting with a point and shoot camera. And where the hell did I put it? It's right here. It's the Yashica MF-2, and we'll take this over to the workbench and give you a closer look at it shortly. But before I do that, I actually wanted to just do a bit of show and tell and talk a bit about point and shoot cameras in general. I won't go too long-winded on it, but because I do have a few examples to show you. But point and shoot cameras have basically been around since the beginning. If you think about it, the old box cameras and like pinhole and stuff, they're a pretty basic mechanism. You just point the, well, it's not a lens in the case of the pinhole, but you point the lens at the subject and then you activate the shutter. However you do that, it's different on different systems. And then so roughly in the 50s, I want to say, maybe the early 60s, there was a market for consumer cameras that came along because 35 millimeter film had made film very accessible where it had not been before. And so we had a consumer market. The thing was that everyday people who didn't really know photography very well, they needed something that was simple, that was easy to use, that you did not need to know really that much about exposure to be able to use. And so other than using like rangefinders or cameras with reflex systems, they would come out with these cameras that just had simple glass window viewfinders. You just look right through the window and it's not going through the lens, and it's not being paired with a rangefinder mechanism. It's just looking over the shoulder of the lens, or sometimes it's even directly over the top. And so that took care of the composition, and that made the cameras a lot cheaper. But what do they do about the exposure settings? Because it really should be as simple as point and shoot. So how do you set your exposure settings, or how do you make it so that the camera can do all your exposure settings? And over time, as technology got better, we found ways for the camera to calculate that with light meters and just fix it for you. But in the early days, they had law of averages cameras, which is what these are. That's what the Yashica MF-2 is. And that works off of the f8 and B there principle, meaning that f8 being the medium aperture, middle of the pack, and roughly 1/100th of a second shutter speed puts you in a sweet spot where that if you're shooting anywhere from 100 to 400 ISO, you can get within a stop of proper exposure. With it, sometimes you end up a little bit over, a little bit under, but you can usually get within one stop of proper exposure, provided that you're following basic instructions. And all that said was, you know, if you're shooting in broad daylight, use 100 speed film. If you're shooting in mixed lighting conditions, use 200, and if you're shooting in dim or cloudy conditions, use 400. And that's basically it. At that point, that fixed setting would put you within one stop of proper exposure. It kind of works similarly to the Sunny 16 system, which you saw me screw up in the last episode. I do know how to do it, by the way. It's one of the first things that I ever learned about exposure. I actually learned it from shooting 8mm movie film. And that's a very basic principle, that if you're setting your shutter speed to being as close to your film speed as possible, so if you're shooting 100, you choose 1/25th of a second. If you're shooting at 200, 2/50th. If you're shooting at 400 speed film, 500th. If you're shooting at 800, choose 1,000th. And in any of those settings, you are about you're about 1/4 stop underexposed, which is such a minute difference that it's really not, I mean, if anything, you might want to be a 1/4 stop underexposed in some situations. So that is pretty reliable. F8 and B there is a little bit more simple in that sense that you are basically allowing a one-stop allowance on either side. So you might be a full stop over or underexposed, but you will still get an image. I mean, if at just one stop, it might be a little blown out if it's overexposed, or it might be a little dark, but generally speaking, most people for general snapshot photography would find that more or less acceptable. And so that's what you get with a point and shoot camera. So the exposures on this are always going to be consistent, provided that with the film speed, that is. I mean, your lighting conditions can change, but it's always going to be more or less the same thing. You're not going to be fiddling around with the aperture. You're not changing your shutter speed. With this, you're not even focusing. It's just a far as I know, it is a single element meniscus lens on this one. And with the other ones later on, you would get some autofocus or whatnot, but usually an internal mechanism autofocus. And that's it. It's just that simple. You point and shoot. So let's take a look at some more. There's a lot of different categories, but as far as I'm concerned, there are about 5, maybe 6 general categories of point and shoot. The two are pretty basic. The two first ones I'll mention are very basic. One is your smartphone, so computational point and shoot photography. Am I in focus or not? I can't tell. The second one is action cam, so like a GoPro. The third, well, this is kind of in reverse order, but we'll do it this way anyway. The third are digital point and shoot cameras, like this PowerShot SD 1100 IS, right? You've seen these. We also call them digicams. Huge deal in the early 2000s. From there, you get into automatic point and shoots, as represented here by the Infinity Zoom 115. I really am actually going to go into more detail on these. Then you get into instant point and shoots, like this Polaroid. And then finally your law of averages cameras. And we'll just kind of start there. You already saw the MF-2. Law of averages also has a few subcategories. So that would be like disposable cameras, for one. I don't have any disposable cameras right now, but I do have this reusable camera from Walgreens. This was something I bought in the early days when somebody at Walgreens said, hey, if you're buying all these disposable cameras, just get one of these things. That'll put you into our customer loyalty program. I cannot tell if I'm in focus or not. It doesn't seem like I am, but I just can't tell. If you get one of these, you'll be in one of our customer loyalty programs, and at that point you basically get a free roll of film if you pay for development. So it was a good deal. You pay a little bit up front for one of these things. I think I paid like $30, which is a lot more than this is worth, but it was sort of a program that got you free film. So that was kind of a cool thing. That was back in like 2008, 2009. Also, in this law of averages, and I talked a bit about this in the last episode, are toy cameras like my Holga. We showed this a little bit in the last one. So toy cameras are also mostly law of averages point and shoots. I have a few other examples. This one is called the Akira TC002, and it kind of looks like an SLR, but it is not. It is a plastic junk. I've only tried working with this thing once. It's has a few lens settings. I think that's just for no, that is exposure. Oh, it does. It says on this one, actually. Okay, so this is kind of unique. This one has a few aperture settings. It is not uncommon, by the way, for some of these cameras to have more than one aperture, but it's usually 2. This one actually has everything from f6 to f16. So, but it's the same mechanism. It's cloudy, semi-sun, sunny, etc. That's another example. That one actually has a few more settings than I thought. Here's another really weird example. This is a Weston WX7, and yeah, it kind of looks like a Minolta X700, which is why when I saw it at the thrift store, I immediately ran over and said, "Is that an X700?" But then as I got closer, I said, "What the fuck is that thing?" I said, "Who's Weston?" You know, and it got even weirder when they handed it to me. Okay, sorry, my camera decided to quit on me unexpectedly. When they handed this thing to me, it's actually heavy. It weighs about as much as a regular SLR, like a proper full metal SLR with a lens on it. So I don't know if they filled this thing with concrete or something, but it's really weird because it is just a plastic. It's just like the other one I just showed you. And this one actually has a few more settings. So maybe I'm wrong about that. It may be more common just to have one that does have multiple exposure settings, but a lot of them are just single element, like the Yashica. Yeah, I guess maybe that's to also make it look a bit more like an SLR. This thing is a piece of shit, though. I've only used it once, and it was garbage. The Holga is a lot better than that. And then, yeah, instant, you know all about this. These are the Polaroids. This is actually my very first camera that I ever used. I need to be using it some more because this is my 20th year doing photography. I got this in 2006. Rescued it from a yard sale. It used to be my family camera when I was growing up, or our family camera when I was growing up. And this is basic thing too. This has a slight aperture setting. So if it's a little bit brighter, push it to one side. If it's in the middle, then there. And I actually think I do have film in here, but I'm not going to... Well, maybe I will. No, I guess not. Usually it wouldn't do that. I guess the cartridge is empty. Okay, so you know about these. It's Sun 600. And then also the Instax, very popular Fujifilm Instax. This is kind of a basic one. This one's got film in it too. Oh no, this actually has a separate battery. But anyway, so you know about these. But it's the same principle. It's just literally the shutter button and your viewfinder, and that's it. You're off to the races. Then we get into automatic point and shoots. This is the other kind of major category. So with these, everything is pretty much calculated by the internal light meter. So a lot of the older ones would either not have, most of the older law of averages don't have light meters, but some of them might have like a selenium thing, but most of them don't. But these do have light meters, and they are battery powered. And at this point, this is a fixed lens version of an automatic camera. This one does have autofocus. It's an internal mechanism, but it is a fixed lens, just like the Yashica. And it is effectively auto-winding, auto-loading, auto-exposure. Everything is done by the camera. So what it does is it reads the DX code on your film, and that tells it what speed that you're using. And then it will calculate the exposure based on that, and then automatically set the camera to that exposure setting. And then so all you have to do is hit the shutter button. Unfortunately, this Ricoh does not work anymore, but that's an example. Then we have my baby, my Olympus Infinity Twin. This is actually the very first 35mm camera that I ever owned. Yeah, I did a lot of shooting with this baby. And I need to shoot it again here soon. But this one is the same idea. It's a fixed lens, but this one does a different deal here because this is a twin lens. So there's a wide lens and then a telephoto, or in this case, like a semi-wide, semi-telephoto, a 35 and a 70. And then you have an extra button up top that alternates between the taking lens, and it also has a separate window that pops up so you can see your exposure based on the two different focal lengths. And on this one, you also have a flash, and then actually these had an issue with their flash. I think these were actually recalled at one point because of the flash. I never use it. Then you also have a setting here for either continuous shooting or a self-timer. So you got a few more kind of accessory options, but still you're just dealing with the shutter button. The other, and I kind of showed this a minute ago, this is also an automatic point and shoot. This is the Freedom Zoom 115, and this one is a zoom. So when you press the on button, the lens pops out and you can adjust the zoom in or out just like that. Very phallic. And and the same thing, it's got a flash and continuous self-timer, all the same stuff. Then we finally get into the digital era, and this was my first digital camera. I should have said one of these is actually not a point and shoot, and I was going to have you guess which one it was, but I kind of let the cat out of the bag because it's this one. This one, I'm only showing you this because a lot of people would look at this camera and a lot from the digital era and say that's a point and shoot camera, but it is not. This one is because, look, it's got the on-off switch and it's got your shutter button, and you do have your other accessory features here, but there's no mode dial and there's no indication of manual settings. So on this one you actually do, and I think you can do it on that other one I showed you, but there's no mode dial on it. This one actually does do shutter priority, aperture priority, and full manual. So it's not a point and shoot. But a lot of times, and I do kind of confess, it's quite possible that this does manual exposure too, so I might be talking a little bit out of school there. But a lot of these are designed to be used as just straight point and shoots, which is why people call them that, but they're really not. There are some digital point and shoots though, like the camp snaps, things like that. They definitely exist. But a lot of times these are regarded as point and shoots, and I don't think that that's technically accurate. So anyway, that's some fun with some cameras and shit. Let's take a closer look at the MF-2, and then we'll head on out to Fiddletown and fiddle around. Okay, let's take a closer look at the MF-2 now, and I'm going to read off some of the specs I see on camerawiki.org. So if this is wrong, blame them. But it looks like the camera actually does have a light meter, which is interesting. I can't say I've ever really interacted with it much, but it says it'll turn red if the shot is going to be underexposed. That's interesting. Another interesting thing here is that I see the wide aperture on this is f4. So this I knew had two aperture settings because there's a switch between 100 and 400 ASA, or as ISO as we would call it now. But I thought that that would set something like f8 and maybe f11 or 16, but no, actually the wider setting, or the wider aperture, is f4. That's very interesting. I did not know that. I also didn't know that there was a light meter because I never put batteries in it. So anyway, that's basically it. Yeah, I mean, it's just that simple. It's just the film door, the advance, the flash, the rewind, and the shutter, and the lens, and that's pretty much it. And the ISO setting. That's basically it. So, yeah, let's head on to Fiddletown. Okay, well, I wanted to do some POV through Fiddletown, but it didn't really work out the best for that, so I'm going to just give you the drive-through instead. I already took my shots. It took about 20 shots. Very scenic location. I'm really looking forward to seeing how these turn out, but since I just didn't have time because there's really nowhere to park. I found this one little spot, but I don't think it's actually a parking place. I'm not entirely sure if it's somebody's property. Most of this place is private property, as that sign right there attests. So I'm just going to give you the little drive-through. It's interesting. I love these little pockets of history that you find. There is an old blacksmithing shop and a stable supply shop. I mean, they're long defunct, obviously, but they've been here for a long, long time. Lots of California Republic flags and all that kind of good stuff. I love this stuff. I was just in a place called Locke not too long ago. It's over by Walnut Grove, and that's ooh, GoPro's flopping around all over the place. That's an old Chinese settlement. Lots of interesting history there, and I love places like this. There's another place nearby called Murphy's that I want to check out here pretty soon. But you know, Ione, Jackson, all of these old west towns. It's my shit, man. What can I say? But that's basically it. What we just drove through, I mean, I parked pretty much at the beginning of it, and that's pretty much it. Now, you didn't see a lot of it because we didn't stop to look. I just gave you the drive-through, but that's pretty much Fiddletown, but you will see the photos. All right, found this cool little spot here. Thought this might be a good place to finish off the roll of some landscapes. Only thing is, it is just a single element meniscus lens, so it's not like I'm going to be able to do any subject background separation or anything like that. So we're just going to have to do a little bit of trial and error, I suppose. At least I'm remembering to take the lens cap off. That is an issue I've often had with this camera because I'm so used to SLRs. But I've done pretty good with it so far today. This is something I've been messing around with a lot, using weeds as a foreground element. Now, you probably can't see that, but there. But again, though, no subject background separation to speak of necessarily. I'm a little scared to try it, but I think I might actually try running across the road here. Because people be hauling ass through here. Well, let's just try a few more shots over here. Yeah, I really wish I could have done some POV in Fiddletown, but there really wasn't anywhere to, like, I don't know. I was just a little uneasy about it, I guess. This is kind of a cool shot. I like the way that these rocks are positioned here. You can kind of see the creek down in the distance. That's kind of a nice idea if I can get it. See if I can get right about here. There. Pretty straightforward. I mean, that's all there is to it. It is literally point and shoot. For better or worse. That actually looks like it's got some really good landscape potential there across the road. Just that people barrel through here so fast. That is something of a blind corner over there. All right, I'm going. Let's see. Yeah, that's a pretty cool shot. Don't want to disturb the butterflies. Like that tree. I like that tree too. Very quiet little click. And I really have no idea how many exposures I got. I'm on shot number 30 as it is. Let's try some a little close up over here. I am really glad that I stayed at 400 though. I was considering when on my way out that I would shoot at 100. Get those little white flowers, whatever they are. I was considering shooting at 100 and then pulling my development, but I'm always a little nervous about that because I've had it work against me quite a bit. So, and then we lost the light anyway. Actually, I'm gonna take another one. You can actually see the freeway in the distance. I'm gonna wait till somebody comes along. Of course, now that I'm wanting to do that, well, I'll take one of just the straight composition here, but then I do want to see if I can work that freeway. But now that I want to do that, nobody's coming along. Fucking figures. What am I on? Shot number 34, 33? Oh, fuck it. Oh, here we go, here we go. Come on. Right about there. And at this point, actually, this branch is pretty cool. Only other thing I'm thinking about is that because it is not an SLR and I have to compensate for parallax, I'm not entirely sure how good any of my compositions are going to be, but I guess you'll tell me, because you'll be seeing these in real time. Except for the Plymouth shots, you'll have to wait for those. There's solar panels off in the distance there. And by gum, I think that's about it. Okay. Now I gotta get back across the road without getting positively splatted. At least I have a better view of this side now. So if a semi comes raging across, I'm good. I'm good. All right. I think I got about another 45-minute drive ahead of me, but I'm ready to head home and develop these shits. All right, I hope you enjoyed those photos. It was fun getting out there to Fiddletown. I always enjoy those little old west towns, and we have a lot of them in Northern California, and I haven't been to most of them. There seems to be one, once you get like out east from where I'm at, you end up running into quite a few of them, and actually several more on the coast too. So I've been kind of exploring those, and that was one I hadn't been to. There's several more to check out, so we'll probably be seeing more of those in future episodes. On that note, I wanted to talk about Shutter Priority, the new name of the show. Yeah, I I chose it because I think it has a double meaning. Obviously, you know about the camera mode. I don't need to go into detail about that, though I will probably do an episode on it at some point because I don't shoot Shutter Priority that much, despite choosing it as the name. The reason I chose the name, though, is the other meaning, which to me I think of as making photography an ever-present part of your day-to-day life, as a means to constantly improve or just enjoy this art form that you've chosen. So, if you're going to be any good at it, you got to do it a lot. So that's the way I think about it. And I am one of those people. I try to keep a camera in my bag. I try to always keep one in the truck. It's silly because I've always got my phone, but I hate shooting with a phone. I always want to use a real camera, But no matter what it is, just always keep hitting that shutter button, and you just always be thinking about everything that you see and everything that you do whenever you're out and about or whatever. At least once a day, contribute something to your ongoing collection of photography, even if it's shit. Just try something. You might learn something. So, anyways, that's what the name of the show is all about. So that's that, and then. Since the last time I did episode 2, a lot has happened. I had to shut pretty much everything down for a little while. A lot of those issues are ongoing, but I am going to be back doing this much more regularly. And on that note, I can't actually tell you what I'll be doing next time. I think I said that I was going to talk more about digital. Not really. No, actually, what we're going to be doing next is one of two things. I did film a third and a fourth video back during, I think, October and November, but I never finished them, so they're kind of half done. I never actually recorded an outro or an intro for them. So I'm going to kind of sandwich them all together, and we'll make that into either episode 4 or 5. So you'll see that. And then there's also the one that I just started working on yesterday, where I'm shooting Harman Phoenix 200, and I'm shooting with my Canon Rebel 35mm camera, and so far on that roll of film, I've been out to Livermore, at the observation point out there, and then I've also been out to Hogan Lake, or near Hogan Lake, at one of the river areas out there. So I'm just still working on that one little bit by little bit. So it'll be one of those two that you'll see next, but you'll definitely see one of them soon, because I'm going to be doing this a lot more frequently. I also had issues with editing software. I have ongoing issues with my internet. My computer is ancient. So, I've just been dealing with all that shit. I still don't really have a good sound situation figured out yet. But yeah, anyway, that's enough. I've been going on for a long time, and I'm tired. And you're probably tired. Bye.